technology.
Professor,
Yes.
I've been trying to put the attendance, but it hasn't been for like 5 minutes. Every time I put continue, it shuts off.
I don't know. I mean, everybody's been able to do this.
I tried it in 2 computers.
I have no idea what's wrong with the system here. Guys, the technical stuff is beyond my control. Okay? But you still have about 5 more minutes to take your attendance. So you got 5 minutes. And if you have a problem, come to me after class, okay? I'll make sure, because I mean, obviously you're here and you're making an attempt. I'm a little bit perplexed at the fact that we had, Miss, could you check to see, can you see me from that screen? If you take a look through there.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, you can see me? Can you see me now? You can see me, okay. Sorry about that. The thing about AUK is that no one does this here at AUK. And so I'm kind of experimenting with these different ways of taping lectures so that eventually it can become something a little more transparent for other professors who have this aversion to technology, but nonetheless are interested in taking a big leap, holding their nose and taking a big leap, but they're just, I shouldn't say aversion, they're not comfortable with technology. So I'm kind of trying to test out all these different ways of using technology in the classroom, and that way we can find out what works and what doesn't work. So I apologize, but I'm not sure whether I can see, whether I'm seen or not. Now, getting back to the course, what I'm going to do is we're going to basically start off where we left off. Can someone remind me what was the last thing we talked about? Take a look at your class. You can go immediately to your class notes. Oh, by the way, I've basically accepted all the followers. Okay, so now you have to then accept me. So at some point in Twitter, before Wednesday, go to your Twitter account and give me the rights to be able to follow you, okay? And that way, you'll be able to post, and I can post as well. Okay? Everybody with me on that? All right. Where exactly did we leave off in the last session? What were we talking about? Can someone remind me?
Multinational corporations.
Multinational corporations. And I put this PowerPoint on the board, which pretty much showed that there are some multinational corporations that are as, or if not more powerful than some nation states. Okay? Now, so up until now, how many actors have we examined or we've identified in this game called international relations? What's the obvious one that comes to mind?
UN.
Okay, and UN is what type of actor? Let's think. Now it's important that you think in terms. UN is an example of a type of actor. It would be considered an IGO, which stands for Intragovernmental Organization. Now, meaning, what does intragovernment refer to? I mean, what is the word intragovernment? You have multiple, what you have is you have numerous nation states who have agreed to abide by the decisions of this IGO, right? So typically IGOs have to have some kind of structure that allows them to do what? Monitor the behavior of nation states as they relate to the treaty that they've signed or the contract that they've signed with the international organization.
There's something in the grammar.
Really? They said it was supposed to work. What does it say? Why did it turn off?
There's no
Okay. Maybe you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to turn it on. And it's,
They have their
oh,
own
you know why?
structure and they monitor
Because
how government
I did not turn on the electricity. So now it's going to be working. The battery's dead. Okay, so the battery died. All right, so you have, so an IGO. What's another one? What's another kind of actor? Guys, you should be able to quickly look at your notes. Folks, let me tell you.
World Bank.
Okay, World Bank. Okay. That's an example.
NGO, NGO.
Okay, well, is the World Bank an NGO or an IGO? World Bank's an international organization, right?
Yeah.
So NGO would be what? A non-governmental organization. Folks, let me be brutally honest with you, okay? I'll be brutally honest with you. Okay, in my classes, okay, you have a choice. You have a choice to either be a branch or a rock. You know the difference? You know the difference between a branch or a rock? What? Well, let's say you're at a pond or some kind of lake with your brother, okay? And someone decides to throw a branch into the pond. What happens? It floats, right? But what happens when you throw a rock into the pond? It sinks, okay? So folks, you have a choice in this course to be either a branch or a rock. Whose decision is it? Yours. Every action has a cost. All costs are opportunity costs. And as soon as your teacher removes the cost of any kind of behavior, students, children, friends begin to behave recklessly. You understand the meaning of cost and how it affects your behavior. If you don't come to class prepared and you don't suffer any cost, will you come to class prepared more often than not? Well, some of you will because you're just naturally A students, which is everybody in here, right? But others won't, right? And if you don't come to class prepared and you feel no threat to not coming to class prepared, you're not going to be worried about it. But if you are coming to class unprepared and you get caught, what happens? You bear a cost. So, it is totally it is unacceptable to have you guys, you ladies, okay, not be able to tell me what an NGO is. We talked about NGOs. What does your note say? What does your note say?
Me?
Yeah, on your NGO, quickly. Go.
What's the talking about?
Okay, it's 10 minutes after
Yeah,
11.
just turned off.
Just turned off?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did the attendance
And it just turned off. Well, turn it back on.
I can't, it's not sure.
Well, why don't you go downstairs to IT and ask them to come up here, okay? This is, I mean, I can't have these classes and I expect you guys to, and then the computers just turn off. If you could just run out and bring them up.
I can
Yeah,
read my
tell them
notes.
it's Professor Roman's class.
I can read my notes. The non-governmental organization.
Yeah,
They're private interest groups, and they allow individuals to focus on specific aspects of the global agenda. And
okay.
they often work with the IGOs, such as the
Okay,
UN.
fair enough. Yeah, that's what I said. So these are, and these organizations exist where? In what dimension of society? There was a term that we used. Civil society, right? So you have civil society, and then you have the state. Okay? So in any kind of country, you have the state, and those areas that the state influences, and then you have civil society. Civil society is that part of society which is outside the control of the state, or can control the government, right? So typically what you have here is we have, when you talk about NGOs, these NGOs have, their agenda is what? A particular issue or a set of issues that they're very passionate about. Whether the environment, okay, human rights, okay? And they go about monitoring the behavior of nation states as they relate to human rights. And if a state violates the human rights, or human rights, and especially if a state happens to have signed some sort of treaty which it basically agrees to follow a certain kind of standard as it pertains to human rights, then that state typically would be violating the terms of their agreement, right? So there's always people out there kind of trying, monitoring the behavior of whether organizations or nation states, okay? So those are NGOs, all right? What was the third one that we talked about?
Transnational.
Transnational what?
Terrorists.
Transnational, but we call them transnational terror groups, okay? And what are transnational terror groups? Yeah.
There are groups that exist inside the nation state, but the government
Okay, that's true. Are they coming? Miss? What's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah, are they coming, Sarah? Okay, good, thanks. Sorry about putting you on the spot there, because, but it's, for me, it's unacceptable. You guys should be able to come in here and have it work right away. Okay? Okay, so we have these agencies, right? These agencies that are involved in some sort of activity that has been deemed terrorist, right? Now that's a pretty enigmatic term, terrorism, right? Because one man's terrorist is another person's. You haven't had this in any of your classes? I mean, there's two sides of every coin, right? A terrorist, for one, would be, and what about those people that support what the terrorist groups are doing? Then they're called what?
Bro.
Huh?
Brothers.
Freedom fighters. You've never heard one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter? Okay, could you check the computers over there? The young lady, these computers are just stopping. Sorry about but we need to get this, under control. Okay, but why is this now, we're talking about these trans-border organizations, trans-territorial organizations, right, that are out there considered actors in the international arena. Why is that unique relative to, let's say, what it was 10, 15 years ago? I want to say prior to September 11th. We talked about that, didn't I? Didn't I talk about that? We view terrorist organizations differently today than we do, say, 15 years ago. What was the conventional wisdom prior to September 11th regarding terrorist organizations?
Before they used to think that if anything that has to do with terrorists, that the country they come from supports that.
Okay, so that if you don't go after the terrorist group, who do you go after? The country that is sponsoring. So terrorist organizations were state-sponsored, right? Excuse me for a second. What happened?
The power was off.
Why?
Maybe someone has turned it off.
Well, she had it on.
No, it wasn't.
Because the monitor was off also and the PC was. I turned it on. And let's check if the network is okay.
Okay. So what you have here is you have essentially this conventional approach prior to September 11th that countries or the terrorist groups are typically supported by countries, and therefore if you're going to go after a terror group, you basically go after its supporter, right, which would be the nation state. And what we've learned after September 11th, that's not necessarily the case, right? So that radically has changed the way we view terror groups, and it's also radically changed counterterrorism policy. Okay? Why do you think, what would be some reasons why a terror group would have let's say, a camp where they're training terrorists? What would be some reasons why they could exist within the country and yet the country would not be sponsoring it? Yeah.
Because eventually maybe you might want to use them later on.
Okay, so, all right, so that maybe that group, the country's turning a blind eye, right? They're not looking, they're just kind of ignoring, they're letting them there because they may be able to use them, right? But then what's the problem with that? Anybody read Frankenstein here or watch the movie Frankenstein? Okay, you guys know who Frankenstein was?
Yes.
Or is? Okay, what's Frankenstein?
He's the green guy that.
The green guy, okay, with the bolts out of his neck, right? Okay, yeah, all right. It's called the Frankenstein. What I'm getting to, it's called the Frankenstein concept. All right. So what would be the Frankenstein concept? Well, first of all, who was Frankenstein? He was a entity that was created by a scientist, right? Okay. And what happened? You create the monster who then goes back and destroys you, right? It's one of the dangers of you're playing really with some pretty serious conditions here when you kind of turn a blind eye to some activity in the hopes that, or with the intent of maybe using it for your advantage, for your self-interest. But then if you lose control of the situation, that could come back and get you, yeah.
If they want to use them, doesn't that mean that they support them?
That's a very good point, and that's a fine line. Meaning, it's in the interest of the nation.